scored a lot more, but they were up for it. The fans they were definitely the 12th man today. We've said it all season long. When a new manager comes in, we experienced it with the Crystal Palace game when Pardew it was his second game in charge, and whether it's psychological, whether it's actually tactical, that gloss has come off Timmy's gilet, if you say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's anyone's game next week, but I think we'll edge that one. I know everyone's up in arms because Merston and Lawrenson, did not predict this game well for us. Lawrenson predicted us to lose. Merston predicted the draw. God damn it, he was right.
Which makes it all the more worse. I cannot stand that guy.
Well, and he's having his war on Twitter with Townsend, which I think Andros needs to be a bigger man and just walk away and leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Separate subject.
Being a reporter, he's there to bait, and he'll do it all day long, especially if he can make a Spurs player look bad.
So I'll put my anorak on because I believe the commentators said this today. That was the first game in 53 matches that was 0-0 between Burnley and Spurs. And if you think about it, we've only had 2 seasons with them in the Premier League, and in those 2 seasons, including cups, which was the Carling Cup back in 2009, and then the FA Cup this season, we haven't been lucky at Turf Moor.
Right.
In fact, in the Carling Cup, we lost. We were 3-0 down. Ended up, I think it was 3-2 in the semi-final. We lost 4-2 that season, and they went down. And this season have been 2 draws at Turf Moor. So I think you have to go back to the 70s, mid-70s, the last time they were in the top flight. So to say 53 games since the last 0-0, and I didn't go back and look to see when that was, but you've got to think that's pre-war.
Well, and
certainly around the 40s or the 50s.
And with all those good points that you made, I have to admit that a day like today wears my patience thin a little, or a lot actually, with Pochettino, because this was a vital fixture for us. He is, if I'm going to take the standpoint, if I'm going to take the mindset that I really believe in him, I think he is a quality manager. I think he's a quality relational guy with his players. I like his brand of football. Those are games that you have to get that collection of players to win. And it was every bit of a must-win for us as it was for Burnley. I don't dispute it's a difficult place to play, although the place was 3/4 filled up. And I just think we should have done better. And I think everybody in this organization should be held accountable to the plus and to the negatives. And I feel like that today we started off 3 steps back. And I believe, and again, as we said, we're not at practice, but we've seen enough of Paulinho to know that he doesn't provide an offensive element to give you goals against a Burnley. And we know enough.
Maybe we've seen that he is now done, as you alluded to earlier.
What did Mbele do other than the West Ham goal that he gave away? What's he done to just be castigated from the starting 11? Same with Lamela. And I think this just. I made a tweet the other day. I just said, well, we've got a €30 million player who's not even good enough to start against the 2 worst teams in the league. And you're not even willing to give him an opportunity to try and develop. I mean, are you really making him a better player by giving him 15, 20 minutes? And I actually felt like that if you're going to make the argument that Soldado's second-half performance against Leicester was good enough to get him a start today, Lamela's not done terrible in his 15-minute cameo roles. I don't know. I think Pochettino should take a good amount of blame for today. And to be this far into the season and still be so offensively tepid, I think this one's more on his shoulders than anybody today.
Do we want to have a conversation on the appointment of Harry as captain today? I know Keith Nicholson asked us to talk about that. He felt that was definitely worth discussing and whether that was the appropriate steps. But Vertonghen, we can go back to the captains, right? Club captain, what's his name again? Oh, that Kabul fella.
Yeah.
All right.
Vice captains, Adebayo, Lloris. And Lloris has been the captain all season since those other two were not ever going to be gracing us with their appearances. And obviously, he's still out injured from his knock from the Leicester game. So Vertonghen has worn the armband in his absence,
right.
So in European games, and he was out through illness. So is it right that Harry should have got it? Should there be someone else more deserving? I think Keith may have alluded to maybe Bentaleb.
Well, 29 goals obviously gets you some cred.
Yep.
But I'll say this, tactically and strategically, would it have been dumb to give it to Kyle Walker? To give him really, because I didn't think he was particularly good today. He was probably the worst of the back four, although it wasn't calamitous like he was against Leicester, but he certainly made some mistakes. I don't know, I wonder whether that's a smart managerial move to get guys even more motivated to play, which, by the way, I think he's going to be out for a good couple of weeks. It was a pretty nasty knock he took, which I never really even understood. Why did he even turn up for the second half anyway?
We've shaken our heads on that.
Yeah.
He's limping out there. What the hell?
Yeah, it happened at the worst time, didn't it? I mean, right before the whistle. So I don't know.
Shades of Gaza after you've torn your ACL.
Yeah.
You really can't walk on it, mate.
I wouldn't be surprised if he turns up with a broken foot tomorrow or shin. But no, I mean, to answer your question, there's really only three to choose from, right? I mean, Harry Kane, you could have put Kyle Walker and maybe Bentaleb, but you're going to have the same argument with Bentaleb that you do with Kane, and Kane's got 29 goals. So I don't really think too much about that.
No, you know what?
I certainly didn't. I just wanted to pose the question, and maybe there was a psychological edge. He's on a high. He's just played a game and a half with the England national team. He's in the spotlight. Is this the mental push to G him up in what's potentially a game that could have slipped us up?
For the most part, you look at the squad. They're kids. Mm-hmm. So when you have a Harry Kane who's doing what he's doing, is it in the mind of the manager, this is the reward you get for putting out the performances that you've been putting out all year long. Mm-hmm. But when the team goes out there and plays as such, and you also have to, does it? I don't want to say backfire. Anything can happen on any given weekend when you're out there in the Premiership. But does it put unnecessary pressure on the kid? We all forget he's only 21 years old.
I don't think so.
Don't think so.
You only have to look, and we haven't mentioned this because it just since we last spoke. But
I'm sure he already feels like he's carrying the club.
Well, that's an interesting comment. I'll just say, look, I mean, he scored 29 for us, scored 2 against Arsenal, 2 against Chelsea, scored in his England debut. I don't think he's short on confidence, and I don't think he was undeserving. And certainly giving him the armband, and not that you were saying this, but giving him the armband certainly wasn't the reason why we drew 0-0.
No, and I understand that, but it was just this is where we're at right now. And, does he go back and look, as a striker, what am I supposed to do? What kind of a voice am I supposed to have? He's very good at doing a lot of things that we didn't know that he was very good at doing this time last year. He was not the Harry Kane that we know, even the first month of this season. This has come out of nowhere, and he is a phenom. He is an absolute phenom.
You know what it is?
In terms of what's happening. When I look at that armband, based on the performances, based on what happened at United, and you look at the players' reactions, faces throughout that game, I think Danny Rose should have been wearing that armband.
Well, I think it's a debate. Whoever gets it, it probably is the path of least resistance to give it to him. I mean, you've got 29 reasons to give it to him, and God knows where we'd be without those 29 goals. And he's been vocal. I mean, I think there's been a number of instances this season where we've seen him kind of, and Bentaleb too for that matter, but kind of bark players around and G guys up. So
I think we've all agreed that Bentaleb is the captain of the future.
Oh yeah, I think so. Especially given the position that he plays, barring someone like a Schneiderlin or someone being acquired. Which, if you believe in what you hear and read, and if the club is being truthful in the minutes of the trust notes, you're never going to see a Schneiderlin or even that type of player at 22, 25 million. No way.
Stupid money.
Yeah.
Do you think the young lads are tiring? Well, you talked about the youth of them, and does today kind of highlight the fact that we've all talked about the fitness regimes of Pochettino's training, but did you think they were tired today? The fact that they were, getting hacked to pieces. I know this kind of sounds exaggerated.
Yeah.
But I thought they looked a bit tired and jaded, and they shouldn't really be from the international break. I know a lot of them were away with their national teams, but Dyer wasn't. Rose pulled out through injury. Could he have not been match fit? I don't know. You would have thought the high of the four that played for England would have been enough to get them through the game back. Do you think these young lads are starting to feel the wear of the season getting to them?
Well, my answer is no. I just think that there is simply a lack of a catalyst. There's a lack of that consistently special player that brings everybody else's game back up. And don't get me wrong. I mean, you've got that to a degree in our front man, but there's nobody in the sort of kind of meat and potatoes part of the park that just gets. Eriksson should be that guy, but you take him out of being that guy today when you put him on the right. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if anybody shouldn't be, I just think Simon. It's probably more. It's a combination of a long season that they're young, so they should suffer from it less than most. But I think it's probably just maybe a lack of experience, and then also just having that lack of that magnetizing player that just seems to make people better. And we just don't have that, and that's certainly, I don't know how you go identify that and go find that in the transfer window, but there is a lack of character in parts where we need it most in the squad.
I think we're certainly missing that veteran leadership experience. We know Lloris gives that, we know Vertonghen can give that. He may not always match it in his performances, but today it just seemed like a really young team that kind of lost their way. I really credit the back four. We're doing a great job. For once recently, we've talked about the number of goals we've shipped in, particularly 2 weeks ago against Leicester, but I thought they did well and definitely are worthy of a good mention in what was a very dour affair. But again, at the end of the day, we didn't lose. We got a point, and I know you're upset, Sam, that you think we should have won. Top four's gone. Let's not even worry about that. This is still a great season. I think the beauty of doing the podcast,
well, that's an interesting question.
We can dissect each game and the week. But when you look at the sum of the parts, this hasn't been a bad season.
But you said great. And has it really been a great season?
Okay. We went to a final. We're in 6th place.
Yeah.
That's not bad from a Spurs standpoint.
It's been great in spots.
Yeah, well, it's had some great moments. Let's say that. I mean,
agree.
The fact that, if the run Arsenal are on, and it's great, you've got to think the only game they have lost in that run is to us, and we played them off the park that day. That was not a Spursy day. We played them off the park. We had a great game against Chelsea, and those are certainly highlights of the season. The Europa League campaign kind of fizzled out, but we had a great run in the Capital One Cup, and it's not been a bad season. Great, maybe a little over the top on the adjective there, but I definitely think it's not been a bad season. And we have a habit, as I'm sure a lot of people do, of over dissecting a particular week and saying woe is me. And you know what, we can certainly say woe is me today because we should have won. If you think about battering the bottom three, but again, we didn't lose to a team that's probably not the best time to play them. If we'd played that game earlier in the season, guarantee you would have got the 3 points.
Probably.
At this point,
they're in a point where they need to win.
Well, I'll harken back to sort of how I was feeling after the League Cup final, where I was like, you know what, learning experience, and I'm thinking of next year, and I like what we have in place, and I'm trying to hang on to that spirit that I had. I think the thing that makes me a touch nervous about all of this is there has consistently been a lack of linear progression to this year. It just stops and starts. Have a couple of 3 or 4 games where I'll say this: certainly the mindset and the positivity, if you will, picked up relative to sort of our dreadful, woeful home performance in the beginning.